Hey, how's it going, everybody? NCS Master here, back again for another video, and this topic is going to be a doozy. So, as I'm sure many of you are aware of my feelings towards this generation, I think they've been made pretty clear in that video of mine. My God, I still can't believe that view count is real. But yeah, if you know me, you know I haven't exactly been hot on the ninth generation. I feel the game lineup has been very lackluster when it comes to exclusives. The consoles themselves haven't shown very much in terms of interesting features, and just overall has felt very uninteresting compared to previous generations. But with that being said, I have still gotten some enjoyment out of my system. I own a PS5. I have had it since near launch day. I got it the best I could during that time. I got it about a month after launch. I've been getting a lot of games for it, and even though I feel the exclusive lineup is very lackluster, especially considering we're nearing 4 years into this thing, I will say that I've enjoyed my time with it, and I think it's a decent console overall. With that being said, it was never really a system I felt was in need of a mid-gen upgrade, something that's becoming a very common trend in gaming ever since the 2010s. The console's always being pushed as super duper powerful at the very beginning of the generation, and then about 3 to 4 years later they go, actually it could have been this powerful, and we're selling it to you again. But I will admit, in total fairness, some of these have been okay. The PS4 Pro, decent enough upgrade. The Xbox One actually had some solid upgrades and newer models for its time that actually really refined its design and made it a little bit more streamlined and cleaner overall, much more than the VCR it originally was. And even Nintendo's dipped their toe in occasionally, most notably with the new 3DS, which, that's alright. I actually own one and think it works pretty well compared to the original. But the ninth gen really felt like it didn't need much of a mid-gen refresh. With how strong these consoles already are and how little it feels like they've gone that much up since the 8th gen, they never really felt like much of a necessity, but it felt like an inevitability in any case. And today, we got one of those mid-gen upgrades showcased to us. The PlayStation 5 Pro has finally been shown to us after months, if not even a couple years of speculation. We finally got to see what it's all about, and oh. Yeah, if you thought I was being harsh on Sony in the Concord video, here comes round two. This console, this upgrade, I don't even know where to start with this thing. This is, you see the title of the video, this is the most worthless system I have ever seen, at least in terms of its mid-gen upgrades or what it's being pushed as, and worthless in the sense of the big three, because, you know, yes, I know there's much more lackluster game systems that have come out during that time. Don't come at me with the Apple Pippin. You know what I'm talking about. But yes, we did finally get to see the PS5 Pro this week, and we got a bit of a showcase of what it can do graphically in terms of its power and fidelity and performance. We got to look at the design, even though it's not really all that different from the base PS5, and most notably, the features that it lacks and the price point, which that is where things really hit the fan with this. So you can see here, this is the big showcase Sony held with Mark Cerny that officially revealed the PS5 Pro. And, you know, you can see right here, they just went all into it. Not too long when it comes to the presentation, only about 9-10 minutes. So it wasn't really overly dragged out, but they did get into what was being done here with the PS5 Pro and showing how it's supposedly so much better than the base PS5, even though, you know, again, the base PS5 can do things like ray tracing, have the SSD for basically no load times and all that. It's already a super powerful console, but I digress. So one of the main things they really went into with this video was going over the performance and fidelity modes when it comes to the games. They noted in the presentation that actually about 75% of people people who play games on PS5 actually play in performance mode. And I'm actually a part of that group. I would much prefer performance mode where you get the higher frame rate. You can see there it's at 30 for fidelity, and then performance mode, it'll go at 60 for the majority of games, because generally in performance mode, like, the game still looks really good, and the higher frame rate is much more worth it compared to fidelity, where the lower frame rate can be a bit more jarring, especially if there's, spikes and differences. So that sort of became the running trend for this video, and was the main point that they hammered on, is that the PS5 Pro is essentially going to make it so performance and fidelity mode kind of become one, in a sense, where you won't have to decide as much between the graphics or the performance of the game itself. You can get pretty damn close to fidelity mode graphics with 60 FPS gameplay. And they mainly went over that with 3 big points that they had for the system here: the larger GPU, this advanced ray tracing, and AI-driven upscaling. So, the GPU is a lot bigger, the RAM is a lot faster, the ray tracing is, it's much more noticeable, you're going to be able to see it a lot easier, and it'll be much more like enhanced in terms of the reflections compared to what it could do before. And of course the AI upscaling that they mentioned, which thankfully is a lot better than certain other ways AI is used, with, they specifically named it here PSSR, which yeah, people have definitely got their jokes in about that. But, like, you can see here AI driven upscaling. Just fast forward a little bit, you can see like how the game like looks a lot better, because the AI driven running is, it's like enhancing it in real time with how the game is moving. And so, they did some showcases, showing fidelity mode on one side and performance mode on the other, and showcasing how, the Pro, it can look a lot cleaner or a lot smoother overall, supposedly, which I'll get into in a minute. But yeah, so it's mostly just cleaning things up and making it so games run a lot more consistently at higher frame rates. Like, they go into some examples here, which I'll go over in a minute. So that was pretty much the bulk of the showcase, where they went over all the details of it before, the standard sizzle reel. But then we got to the very end of it, and right there, that is where it all just came crumbling down. This little note right here at the very end: $699 USD. $700. That is already insane. That is already $200 above the disc drive PS5 and $300 above the discless PS5, the all digital one. And as you might be noticing here from the image, that is only a digital PS5 Pro. It does not have a disc drive, and there is no other model, because they are only making a digital only PS5 Pro. There is not a specific model that includes a disc drive, and digital only is going for $700. If I could borrow a phrase from the wise philosopher James Angry Video Game Nerd Rolf,
what the fuck were they thinking?
How in the hell Sony thought they could get away with this pricing for a digital only console is just that is just pure insanity to me. And this note here, these two pieces together, is the sticking point for people. I'm sure some of you have looked down here, and while I know dislike plugins aren't really 100% accurate compared to when YouTube used to show them to us, that is not good. 86K compared to 112K. That is bad. And it is even worse over on an official, like, just 1-minute trailer they put out after the actual 10-minute showcase. Look at this. 48K to 138K. Like, this is Xbox One reveal levels of bad. This unironically, it has to be the most hated console reveal since the Xbox One was originally revealed. I have never seen just this level of disdain since that time with the Xbox One. Like literally it says up here, it's baffling. Now, it was announced later that there is a disc-based option for the PS5 Pro, but not a full-on model. If you want a disk drive for the PS5 Pro, you have to purchase it separately. The only way you are getting this thing out of the box is all digital, and that's already starting at $700 US. Even just saying that out loud, it feels unreal to me because I don't know how Sony thought they could get away with this. Like, I want to know what is going on internally with them right now. Like, are they surprised by this backlash that they're getting, or did they expect this and still go through with it? But yeah, as shown here from Wario64, the disk drive sold separately, that is going to be $80, $79.99. So tack on another 80 to that, you're getting close to 800, and then you actually go up to 800 because another thing I forgot to mention here, the vertical stand, this thing here, isn't even included with the system out of the box. You have to buy that separately. And going over here on Sony's website, that's $30. So if you want just the stand and a disk drive for this thing, just out of the box together, you're paying over $800 US. And that's before tax. You factor in tax for all these things because they're pretty expensive items, especially the console. You're easily looking at 900 to a grand for this thing. So not only is it a shitload of money, but with what you're really getting for it, it's barely even worth it if you ask me, because going back through the technical presentation here, like they showcased some games, like of course the first they showed off here was the Last of Us 2 I showed here, which by the way, yeah, real awesome. The first game you show for the PlayStation 5 presentation is a PS4 game. It really goes to show the state of this console's exclusive lineup. But like they showcase The Last of Us 2 here, and they go into like how there's all these like different details in the background. And that's the main thing that they talked about here. All of these little extra details and points in the far off background. Like you look here, like, okay, the windows are clearer here in the Pro version. Like the text might be a little bit easier to read here, but like, you look at the foliage, look at all of this here, the lighting and everything. The textures might be ever so slightly cleaner on the Pro, but it already looks really good. And again, same thing here with Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. What do they really go into? The crowd in the background. Like, okay, yeah, the crowd looks a bit crisper here, compared to the standard PS5, but that's so far off. And, like, you're not going to be paying attention to that when you're playing the game. This isn't the focus. Same thing here for Spider-Man 2. What do they really focus on? Like the trees being a bit cleaner, or the cars being a little bit, smoothed out from looking a little bit rougher. But you're not gonna be paying attention to this in normal gameplay. What are you gonna be doing? You're gonna be swinging from building to building, jumping across rooftops, or fighting a bunch of enemies. Really, the only way you notice something like this is if you're stopping to use, like, photo mode or something. Which even then, like, this still looks good on the PS5, just the regular PS5. It's so minuscule, which that's been the big thing for me with this upgrade. graphics have gotten so good now, games are just running into this massive wall of diminishing returns where you can only make them look so much better because we're just hitting a wall where it becomes harder and harder to climb. As games have advanced further and further, you notice the differences become smaller and smaller and smaller to where now for this enhancement, we got to focus on minor details in the background or far off in the distance or things you aren't even going to be paying attention to when you're actually playing the game. Like Last of Us, Spider-Man, Ratchet. These are high action, shooting and moving and fighting enemies all the time, or most of the time at least, outside of stuff like cutscenes. And are you really going to be that attentive of such minuscule details when all this shit's happening on screen and you're just trying to play through the game and fight off enemies? I certainly don't think that would be the case for me, at least. It's a very similar way I feel to when people moan and complain about censorship of outfits and things like Stellar Blade. Oh, because Eve's dump truck ass isn't fully out on display as in this costume previously. Oh, they showed it's covered up a little bit. My guy, you are not gonna be staring at TNA when you're playing the game. You are going to fight for your survival in something like Stellar Blade. You're gonna be doing this. If you want that, go on the internet. Like, this image here that's been shared around before really does a good job of just showing how diminishing the returns are. Because you can see here, 60, 600, that's a huge difference. 600 to 6,000, pretty good difference. But then you get to this, and there's practically nothing. It's like N64, GameCube, Wii, and then PS4, Wii U or something. It just gets lesser and lesser every single time, which is what we've really run into this generation. Because I've said before, I even feel like games from this generation don't even really feel that much more impressive from late 8th gen games. Do PS5 games now really seem that much more impressive than The Last of Us 2 or Ghost of Tsushima were in 2020? They don't seem that way to me. And again, so much of it really does just come down to this price point and having no disk drive. I thought this was gonna, when they were announcing that this was gonna be a thing, they said ahead of time they were gonna do this presentation and what they were gonna do with the PS5 Pro, I thought it was gonna be a diskless model and a disk drive model. The digital only model would be $600 and the disk drive model would be $700. Because I didn't think they wouldn't do a disk drive model because so many people still go with physical games. I'm pretty certain the disk drive version of the PS5 has far and away sold better than the digital only version. And we know what this is. This is Sony trying to further push digital only gaming because that's what these companies want. They don't want to bother making physical games anymore. It'll save them money. They want more ownership over the games that they sell to you because, God forbid, we want to actually own what we buy. And that's what this is just further pushing towards. They want to try to wean people off of physical games so they can go more digital. And they're doing that by then wanting to make you buy the disc drive separately and make something that's already stupidly expensive even more expensive. And it's not been lost on people. If you go on Twitter, it is just people ripping into this thing, even making jokes about the lines on the PS5 Pro or the lines of coke that the Sony execs were doing with the pricing. If you traded it at GameStop, a hard drive articles about it, not YouTube Kids chimed in, and just so many people. Again, there's that image again that I showed earlier. It's people just, they're not falling for it. They realize just how ridiculous ridiculous that pricing is and how little is coming back to it in return. And it's even a hard sell for people who are already invested in a PS5. Like, people have pointed out with the newer version of the PS5 that they've released, where it has that little slit on it, you can take the disk drive from that version of the PS5 and attach it to the Pro. So that would be one option that you could potentially have, but you still have to pay out the ass for this Pro model, and that only applies if you've gotten a PS5 more recently. Like, if you're someone like me who got it very early on, or in like 2021 or 2022, where you just have it where, like, you have the model that is only like the solid white panel, you don't have that option. If you get the Pro and you have a physical collection like I do, I've got like 30 physical PS5 games. If I was to get the Pro, I'd have to buy the disc drive, or else it would just be like all those games would be worthless to me. If I trade my PS5 in to make the Pro ever so slightly more affordable. And seeing the few people try to defend this as well, going on about stuff like, oh, gamers realizing they have to spend premium prices for a premium item, or, oh, inflation would have made the older consoles super expensive as well, or, how about you just don't buy it? How about you? It's just absolute insanity to me that Sony thinks this is justifiable. When this system, like I said earlier, it barely has any notable exclusives to its name. So it's like, oh, spend $700 for this when the system's got like what, 3? And it's going into its 4th year? Like, how do you justify this? And if you really care about like graphical fidelity and performance to the point of spending $700, if you're going that much in, why not just go all in and just buy a PC at that point? A ton of the PlayStation games are coming to PC now anyway, like factoring in tax and the disc drive and the stand if you get all of that. Like I said, you're going to be spending close to like $900 to $1,000, which, again, at that price point, just go for a PC. You'll have much more freedom with what you can do with it. You can get like a bunch of games that are on something like Steam that aren't on the PS5. And, maybe Sony exclusives, you don't get to play them right away, but most of them are probably going to be coming to the storefront later or to the platform later. It's like, oh my god. And I'm not even an avid PC gamer. I barely play on the PC, truth be told. Like, I don't even have like a proper desktop. I record and play everything on this like a laptop I got. But ironically enough, I have been playing a bit more on PC lately because I've been going through the Half-Life series for the first time. But getting off topic, it all really just comes down to how it really doesn't feel like what we're getting out of this price tag is worth it because of that law of diminishing returns. Like, a lot of people in the wake of this have been discussing the Nintendo Switch 2 because that's very likely going to be on the horizon. Hell, there's been rumors that it could even be revealed this month, so you could literally know about the Switch 2 just a couple weeks after I put out this video. But people have been talking about how the Switch could really use an upgrade, and that's going to be a lot more substantial because the Switch, it's not all that powerful. And the rumors of the Switch 2 having the strength of the PS4 Pro, that's going to be way more noticeable. So going from one platform to another is going to be a lot more, oh, this is really worth it because there's actually a significant upgrade here, which is not what we felt really as much at the beginning of the 9th generation and are feeling even less now with something like this Pro model. I really don't know how well this thing is going to sell. I don't think it's going to be a lot. Like, I guarantee you this is not going to sell as well as the PS4 Pro, because the PS4 Pro, again, wasn't a massive upgrade, but it was a bit more noticeable and much better price than whatever this is. And even then, with the PS5 Pro, we're about halfway through the ninth generation at this point. Like when the PS4 Pro came out, it was 4 years later the PS5 came out. We're 4 years in to the PS5. So assuming another 3 to 4 years, the PlayStation 6 is going to be out by then, which God only knows what that's going to cost and what the graphics are going to look like if this is any indication. But then you might as well just wait for the successor to see if there's any point in getting a better upgrade than whatever this is, than spending $700. Oh, and by the way, just to put that into perspective with how expensive it is for other countries, 700 for the US in places like Canada, that's $950. And in a place like New Zealand, you're looking at nearly 1200. Can you see why people aren't happy about this price tag? Ultimately, yeah, that's all that really needs to be said about this thing. It's not worth it. A lot of people agree that it's not worth it. If you want to spend your money on it, I'm not going to say, you shouldn't or like belittle you if you do. It's your money. You can do whatever the hell you like with it. Lord knows we all make dumb purchases from now and again or things we don't really need, but if you're gonna take word from anybody or if you care about what I have to say, I wouldn't get it. It's not worth it with what all this provides. The PS5 already looks really, really good as is. And, or the Xbox does as well. God only knows if Xbox is going to do their own mid-gen refresh. What, is that thing going to cost $900 or $1,000 right out of the box? God forbid. But anyways, with all that being said, that should do it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully, I won't have to make a video like this again on PlayStation in the very near future, but with how up and down they have been throughout September, nothing is guaranteed. But if you would like one little piece of advice from me, if you would be rather looking to spend your money a different way on November 7th of this year, might I highly recommend The GOAT is back.